Jungle Book was the last major picture that Walt personally produced, and it had the opportunity to do all the things he loved. He loved story. He loved great art. He loved music. He loved personalities and characters, and he loved gags. He loved good, solid sight gags.
Gags.
Oh, yes.
That's a key word. I remember an interview of him at the end of his life, and he said something about, the guys still say I'm the best gag man on the lot.
Yeah, he is. He was, by God. He really was. And all the ingredients that he loved and developed over 30 years were poured into this.
My involvement with the Jungle Book was unexpected. Bill Peet had been working on this thing for probably almost a year, and Terry Gilkinson had been writing songs. But Walt and Bill got into an argument over the tone of the story, and Bill walked off the movie. So Walt said, put together a new story crew. And that's how I found myself a part of the story team.
We were the staff songwriters at the studio at the time, and we were called in along with Willie Reitherman and Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, the key animators. And Walt's first question to us, he said, how many of you guys have read Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling? And like a bunch of kids in school, none of us raised our hand. We hadn't done the homework, you know, so. And he said, great, I'm glad you didn't read it, because I'm going to tell you the story the way I want to tell it. And then he started to tell the story. He became every single character. He was Baloo the bear. He was Bagheera. He was everyone.
Well, there's no doubt that Walt was the greatest storyteller at Disney Studio.
I'd say he was the greatest storyteller in the world.
I think he thinks he was, too.
Yeah, I think he did. Did he tell stories to you that way?
Well, Dad would come home at night, and we'd all have dinner together, and sometimes he'd talk about what was happening, but I think he was probably burnt out from storytelling. Before I could read, it was my mother who would read to me at night. Dad drove us to school every morning until I was, 16. As he drove us to school, he would tell us a story. Wow. And the story was always something that he was working on or thinking about.
You know, the two things that Walt really hammered away at all the time was personality and character. Walt, he loved people that sort of exuded personality, and so he was always looking for those voices, those special voices.
Wasn't this the first time that he used so-called celebrity voices?
Exactly. He actually broke the ice with Phil Harris.
Yes, it's a doobity-doo.
They couldn't find the right voice for Baloo the bear. They were looking and looking and looking. And one day, Walt and Lillian, your mom, were at a party in Palm Springs, and he heard a joke being told at the other end of the room, and it was Phil Harris holding court. And he said, "That's Baloo."
Dad was very tuned into voices. When I was quite young, we used to go for Sunday drives. Every Sunday, we'd pile in Dad's Roadster, and we'd go out the San Fernando Valley way, all the way up as far as we could go. And we listened to all the great radio shows, the comedy shows. That's where he got acquainted with Phil Harris and loved his voice and his humor. He was one of their favorite characters.
Oh, man, this is really living.
So you're the man cub. Crazy.
One of the scariest scenes of all the stories was little Mowgli, taken by a marauding band of monkeys to the ferocious king of the apes.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP.
Walt's words to us at the time was, take the scariest scenes you possibly can and turn them on our ear. Just make fun with them. So Bob and I said, what does an ape actually do, you know? Bob said, well, they swing in a tree. I said, yeah, they swing in a tree. He's the king of the apes. We'll make him the king of the swingers, and he'll be a band. Walt heard the song, he loved it, and he said, you go to Las Vegas and play it for Louis Prima. Louis Prima and a band called Sam Butera and the Witnesses were the wildest band in all of Las Vegas. And so we went out there, and I sang and played I Want to Be Like You for them for the first time. And they're the wildest guys in the world, but they sat there like university professors studying this thing. And when we were through playing it, I want to be like you, and I finished, and he said, "Are you trying to make a monkey out of me?" I said, no, you're the ape. These guys are the monkeys. They all started to laugh.
I recall the day when Milt Kahl and Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson came bursting through the doors of D-Wing, and they had just witnessed this phenomenon over in Stage A where Louis Prima had been recording.
They would sort of do a serpentine. They'd walk around the room with their instruments going back and forth, and they filmed that. And that was used in the animation.
Oh, you bet. You bet.
Yeah.
Trust in me, just in me.
One of the first sequences I worked on was the sequence where Kaa the snake tries to hypnotize Mowgli a second time. We had some pretty good boards. We showed them to Walt, and Walt said, "I think we need a song here." And I said, "Well, Walt, we don't have a song." And he said, "Don't worry. I'll have the Sherman Brothers write a song for you."
We were working on something else, and he came in, he said, "I want you to do something." And my brother said, "Walt, we're working on 5 things." He says, "Well, that's nothing. I'm working on 25, you know." And he was. We had this wonderful series of boards that these fellas had devised, and with this hypnotic eyes and the snake and everything, and we came up with Trust in me, just in me. When he played that song for the first time for Walt, he fell in love with it, but he never would say, "Oh, great, great, great."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, that'll work." That was his famous...
It was.
But that was his compliment. He would tell you, "Yeah, that'll work." Was that the way it was at house?
Well, you know, what I would hear from my mother would be things, "Your father's really proud of you because of such and such." You know, you hear it that way. Yeah. And I think that's the way Dad worked.
He kept us on our toes.
You knew when he didn't like it.
Yeah. Oh,
for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's not for me. No, he would. You knew right away if he didn't like it.
I knew too when he didn't like what my behavior or my
attitude. But he expected everybody to be up there on a standard with him, and the people that worked for him were all gifted people.
Did you know Walt Paragoy?
I certainly did. Yeah. Walt did some of the early color styling on the film back in the 60s.
We just have acquired some Jungle Book art. Hi, Michael.
Hi, welcome.
Good to see you back.
Good to see you.
I'd like you to meet Richard Sherman.
Oh, Michael,
and Floyd Norman.
Hi.
They both were involved with Jungle Book from the beginning.
Look at these.
And it's beautiful.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that beautiful?
And you worked with Walt, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I worked with Walt Paragoy on Sword in the Stone.
Right.
And Jungle Book was his next assignment.
He had a marvelous sense of color. Look at that.
By the 60s, Walt's team was probably at their best. Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson, and a great character designer such as Ken Anderson.
Of course, Walt was the leader of the whole thing. He was sort of encouraging everybody to go as far as they could. And at the apex of this thing, with this great joyful picture that was conceived by Walt before it was released, Walt passed suddenly.
I heard the news over the radio. It came as a total shock because Walt had been working with us all of 1966 with the same energy, the same enthusiasm he always had. So his death was totally unexpected.
About a week before, Walt came to the studio. He was across the street at St. Joseph's Hospital, and he looked very thin and frail. And as he passed Bob and myself, he said, "Keep up the good work, boys." And I'll never forget that because he never paid compliments like, "Keep up the good work, boys."
Do you think he ever saw it fairly complete?
The story definitely was complete, and most of the animation, although he never saw the final print, I know that upstairs, Walt was looking down and watching it, and he was having a great time. It was a very thrilling experience to work with him, and you take a look at Jungle Book today, and it's as thrilling and funny and joyful and exciting to look at and feel and hear as it was 50 years ago. I feel this here at the Disney Family Museum, that his legacy goes on and on and on. It was a great joy working on this picture, and it's a great joy talking about it now.
And the music still sounds great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.